stakeholders in the Nigerian health sector are rubbing minds with the World Health Organization (WHO) in Abuja to find the best strategy to eliminate the yellow fever disease by the year 2026. Now, the reason for worry is that the yellow fever disease can go viral in a very short period of time. Yellow fever re-emerged as a public health threat after outbreaks in Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo caused 400 deaths in 2016. Currently, Brazil is battling its worst outbreak of yellow fever in decades, with more than 1,000 confirmed cases. This is why many countries are very strict about the yellow fever vaccination. Some countries send foreigners back, denying them entry if they have no proof of yellow fever vaccination. On this edition of Nigeria Today, we're looking at the possibility of eliminating yellow fever in 8 years and how to sustain engagement in the elimination process. My name is Joy Osiago. Welcome to Nigeria Today. To discuss this topic, I have with me in the studio Dr. Godwin Ntadom. He is the Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation. Dr. Godwin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
Now, let's take a look at the yellow fever disease. We do know that it is spread by mosquitoes, but what type of mosquitoes?
Well, thank you very much. Yellow fever, like you said, is spread by mosquitoes. We have different types of mosquitoes. We have the Anopheles, which is the one that causes malaria. We have the Culicines, and we have the Aedes. But primarily, the one that causes yellow fever is the Aedes, but other mosquitoes can cause it too, because it is primarily transmitted through these mosquitoes when they bite human beings and some animals. So, like the Aedes is just the primary one, the commonest one that causes yellow fever.
Here we are talking about the yellow fever disease. Are we at risk in Nigeria?
Yes. Nigeria is one of the countries that, countries have been grouped with as countries with epidemics that can have malaria, yellow fever epidemics. And in Africa, we have about 33 countries that fall into this category. Then we have some in the Mesoamericas. The Mesoamericas are the countries in the Southern Americas, like Cambodia, countries like Colombia, like Brazil. So these form the group that are known as the epidemic, the countries that can easily have epidemics of yellow fever.
Now, with the resurgence, I notice that there's so much talk about this disease right now. Where were we in terms of dealing with this disease before the resurgence?
Yes, like the challenge of yellow fever was brought down significantly in the mid-20th century, in the 50s and the 60s, as a result of mass immunization, mass campaign, vaccination of individuals, and that actually created a kind of herd immunity that the disease went down drastically. But like you are aware, over time, of course, the people that had the vaccines are dying, people are not being revaccinated, and people begin to lose that protection, and gradually, because like I said, it could be a man, it could be an animal, suddenly the disease begins to rear its head again, and before you can do anything, or in most places, once it affects one, it's a viral infection, it moves on. As long as the mosquitoes are biting, the disease is being transmitted also.
But for a disease of this nature, shouldn't the health sector be proactive at all times?
It has always been, but like I said, you know, when sometimes some diseases, they are like springboard. When you bring them down and you don't do anything again. You have to sustain that effort. If you don't do anything, it comes up again. And that is exactly what has happened, or what is happening in some countries now, where people don't have that protection any longer, and the disease comes in and many people are affected.
Okay, so in Nigeria, who are the people who are at risk in terms of our population?
All age groups are at risk, because we are all exposed to the disease, and we can all contact it, children and adults. So it's a disease that when it comes in, it affects the individual with symptoms, and primarily you pick it with the symptoms before you now go and do a definitive diagnosis to find out whether it is yellow fever or not.
Now, most countries, I know most times when you're coming into the country, especially from the airport, whether coming into the country or going out of the country, they lay so much emphasis on vaccination, and sometimes they turn people back.
Absolutely.
Is that the right approach?
Yes, it is, because they, like I would say, is a disease that once you bring it into a system where people don't have are not protected, the risk of infecting many others is high. And you see, is a disease that can have very high fatality. People can die if something is not done. And as we are aware, it does not have any cure or treatment. Once you are infected, you only manage or try to treat the symptoms and all the complications, but it does not have any definitive treatment. And that is why emphasis is being given to prevention through vaccination.
Now that we have case studies of this disease in some countries, what are the best ways of stopping international spread?
Well, the two major ways. Number one, you attack the vectors. That is the mosquito, the Aedes mosquito that transmits the disease. Then the second one is through vaccination. And there are two approaches to the vaccination. The one we are used to is when you want to travel abroad, they ask you, like when you want to go to Ghana, South Africa, and many other countries, they ask you. Of course, that is the only reason why some people go for vaccination, because they want to have the yellow card. But ideally, most people, all individuals, and that is what we are talking about now, and that is what the eye is talking about. The eye, that is the elimination of yellow fever epidemics. What it's talking about is that countries that are prone to epidemics of yellow fever, they have to now begin to work harder to ensure that the disease is tamed down to a point where it does not cause epidemics any longer. So
yes, let me allow you to finish.
So what it is done now is that countries will now have to strategize in a way that one of the approaches now, you begin to do mass vaccination. No longer when you want to travel, you go to either the port department or to get yellow fever. Everybody must be vaccinated, and it's even been incorporated into the routine immunization for children, because children can have it. And the good thing about it now is that once you have the yellow fever vaccine, you are protected for life. So just one shot gives you that protection that you need.
Now here you are giving us good analysis of the situation and what can be done. Looking at the Angolan and DRC cases, what are the lessons we're learning from there, and what are we doing to prevent outbreaks in Nigeria? Yes,
the good lesson we've learned there, and even the Brazil, is that all high-risk countries are susceptible to having outbreaks. And you know, especially when you talk about area that is highly populated, especially in maybe some slums, and the disease comes in, the risk of many people getting infected and recording many deaths is always there. So what you do is that you want to nip it at the bud. You don't want people to even get the disease. And again, the environmental control, environmental sanitation, where you don't even allow the mosquitoes to breed in your environment. It's very paramount to preventing yellow fever.
Now, in terms of statistics, let's look at Nigeria. Where are we? Is it low? Is it high?
Like in few, sometimes we've had epidemics. Epidemics, you say it is epidemics when you suddenly begin to have higher number of cases than normal, or than what you have been recording in such areas. Well, once in a while we get some sporadic cases where you say, okay, one in maybe Adamawa State or two here, but it's not that it's that low. We've been recording some cases also, but it has not really come, of recent, it has not really gone to the level of epidemics, and that is why we are really sitting down. MPACD has been doing a lot of work. NCDC has been strengthening now that they can do some diagnosis, because that is another thing. You may have an outbreak of yellow fever. The challenge may be how to make the diagnosis, because the symptoms of yellow fever are not different from the symptoms of malaria and any other diseases, Ebola. They all come the same way.
So the symptoms are the same? They
are the same. You have fever, you have sometimes, the only difference may be maybe the individual may present with yellowness of eyes and maybe tongues and all the other, but generally all the symptoms are similar, and you need to make your quick diagnosis to know what to do.
Now that's a big challenge for the individual, who contacts yellow fever. How are you able to know, to attack this and nib it in the bud at a very early stage?
Yes, that's why prompt reporting. When you have symptoms, you go to the hospital, they make diagnosis. The common thing in our environment is once you present with fever, everybody thinks of malaria. But the good thing again is that malaria now has an easy test. When you do the rapid diagnostic test, it's negative. Malaria is a disease of exclusion in our environment. You make your diagnosis quickly to exclude malaria, because if it is malaria, go ahead and treat. But if it is not malaria, it could be any other thing. It could be Lassa fever, it could be Ebola, it could be any hemorrhagic fever, it could be yellow fever, and that is why you have to quickly do some other investigations to be able to make proper diagnosis of what the disease is.
Now, some Nigerians will have these feverish symptoms, and they'll just walk into a pharmacy and get a drug off the shelf and take it. And it might not be malaria, it might be yellow fever or something else. So in terms of creating awareness to let people know, because currently people are talking about Lassa fever and others. No one is talking about yellow fever until now. What are you doing in terms of creating awareness? We don't have to wait for an outbreak.
That is today we had a meeting, it's an international meeting, where the strategy was launched. This is just to reawaken all the high-risk countries to begin to see it differently. We don't want to take it lightly any longer. So many things are being put on ground, where you have to have capacity to make the diagnosis, capacity to also prevent the disease, then awareness, creating awareness. The awareness may not be skewed to yellow fever alone. Like we said, if mosquito does not cause malaria, it causes so many other diseases, because mosquito is one insect that can transmit several diseases. So you try as much as possible to prevent the breeding of mosquito in your environment, because you cannot say, okay, this is Anopheles mosquito, this is Culicine. It is, except for an entomologist, is a difficult thing to do. The proper thing is to ensure that you don't even allow the breeding opportunity. You don't create breeding opportunities of mosquitoes.
So keeping our environment clean is essential.
Clean, and preventing because sometimes it may be clean yet they are breeding mosquitoes. That is, you ensure you don't give opportunities for waters that you are not using. So that is the primary thing.
All right, Doctor. You're watching Nigeria Today, and we're looking at the yellow fever disease and combined effort to eliminate the disease by the year 2026. We will now take a break to hear from Nigerians about what they know about the yellow fever disease.
It is transmitted by a vector known as the Aedes mosquito. Why it is termed fever is because of the symptoms. It is characterized by chills and feverish conditions.
If you don't take care of yellow fever, it can kill.
I know it comes in form of malaria, but it's more than malaria.
The sickness that is contagious, and everybody know. Especially you need to keep your environment very clean. And
as a sickness. Yes. That's what I know.
Okay. My brother is a killer disease. I will be very, very glad if federal government can look for something like vaccine so that we can vaccinate everybody.
Government should have to do something about this yellow fever disease, so that the awareness should be more. And at the same time, all the rural areas should have to go in and check, and the drugs should be supplied to the hospitals.
Coming up on NTA News 24, Nigeria Today, 7:30, Monday to Friday, with exciting anchors on topical issues. Inspirators, a search for those who inspire others. Business 24, a business magazine program. Late edition repackaged. Fresh and exciting programming on NTA News 24. Stay with us.
We're back in the studio to continue with our discussion on eliminating yellow fever epidemic by the year 2026. And I have in the studio Dr. Godwin Ntandom, the Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation, who has been explaining and talking about the countries that are at risk, what we're doing in Nigeria to prevent an outbreak of the epidemic. Dr. Godwin Ntandom, thanks for staying with us.
It's my pleasure.
You listen to Nigerians out there. What's your impression about the opinion about yellow fever?
I'm impressed. The awareness is there, and I'm happy people equally know the symptoms, and the symptoms are not specific really. Like I said earlier, most hemorrhagic fevers and many other, they come with similar feverish condition, weakness, joint pains, headache and all. But the most important thing, where we are still having a major challenge in this country, is people seeking for diagnosis. Presumptive treatment has really caused, because the challenge with presumptive treatment is, oftentimes when you have symptoms of fever, headache, you go to chemist. Over 95% sure that what they are going to give you is anti-malaria. But over time, malaria problem has really decreased compared to what we are thinking, So if it's not malaria, what is it? What will it be? That should be our thinking. And when we begin to embrace diagnosis, and like I said earlier, the country is moving forward. We want the Nigerian Center for Disease Control that has capacity now to make a lot of diagnosis of this hemorrhagic fever. We have other institutions within the country who can equally make diagnosis. It is good. So when you have symptoms, because when you fail to diagnose early enough, it encourages the spread of that disease. While you are still dilly-dallying, thinking of what to do, or you are taking the wrong medicine, another person is contacting it and the thing is spreading. So primarily, we should embrace diagnosis, seeking for diagnosis before we begin to think of treatment.
Dr. Ntadom, I'm glad this is coming from you because I am particularly worried about those in the rural areas. That's where people go to the chemist to buy drugs off the counter and just take. Someone will tell you, oh, I have headache, I'm going to get Panadol. It might not be headache, it might be something else.
Absolutely.
Now, what are we doing to reach those at the grassroots? I can tell you that there are some people at the grassroots who are not watching this program at the moment. There must be another strategy, another way of reaching them. Are you thinking about that approach?
Yes, like I mentioned also, the National Primary Health Care and Disease Control is a grassroots structure, you know, is a package. When you go to the communities, it's not only, you're not talking about only vaccinating them, not only vaccinating them, but equally you try to create awareness, you sensitize them, you talk to them, and over time people have started. It's just like measles. When you want to go and give measles vaccine, you just don't go and begin to pump, you know. You talk to them, you educate them, and it's going to follow the same pattern where people have to know about it. And like we say, we talk about, we just finished talking about Ebola. Then Lassa fever is still on ground. We're still talking about Lassa fever, and you can see the infectivity, the rate of people. Just you go to a facility recently, you go before you even know that it's Lassa fever. Many people within the facility has gone to touch, has gone to hug, has gone to. So these are the challenges. We have to begin to learn to say when you have febrile condition, when you have fever, it could be anything.
Right.
Malaria is just one of those things.
All right, let's still address this issue of yellow fever deeply. I know that the World Health Organization and the Federal Ministry of Health are working together to see how we can eliminate this disease by the year 2026. That's talking about 8 years. How feasible is that?
Well, let me just correct that. That is eliminating epidemics. You see?
Not just yellow fever.
No, I mean, so that there won't be a major outbreak any longer. You understand? It will still be happening, maybe sporadic, one case here, one case there, but let there not be a situation where they will say, like what is happening in Brazil, where you say, oh, thousands of people are infected, you are recording this cause of deaths. No, that is what we are trying to do, and that is why countries are gathered in Abuja today to discuss on how to achieve that.
All right, we want to thank you very much for your contributions, and we do hope that Nigeria, working with WHO, will work well to ensure that we're able to eliminate yellow fever to the barest minimum. You have been watching Nigeria Today on NTA News 24, and we'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Godwin Ntadom. Dr. Ntadom, we appreciate your contributions and want to thank you very much for coming into the studio.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's Nigeria Today. We thank you for watching. You can watch this program online on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24. See you next time.